Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere program. So in the last episode, we set up this fractionator build that is converting our hydrogen into deuterium. You can see it's a little stalled up because I've been doing some other things. We also, to make sure that we're not going to run out of hydrogen, set up this X-ray cracking build, converting our refined oil into hydrogen with a byproduct of energetic graphite. So the energetic graphite, to make sure that we did not pile up on this, we set up a thermal power generator section over here. This is largely temporary, and it's just here to make sure that we don't run out of, or that we don't collect or stop crafting the hydrogen. The hydrogen is kind of the main source of power that we have, which is being converted into hydrogen fuel rods and is feeding this thermal generator over here. At some point, this one will completely run out of potential energetic graphite. We're not going to make any from scratch. This is literally just to take care of the byproduct. So in this episode, there's a couple things that I want to do. First off, we are going to be starting a mall in this episode. And before I get into that, I did want to talk about this a little bit. So obviously we turned on one of these, and you may have noticed that I set it to 2000 and 2000. So I didn't really explain why I set it up like this, but all of these are going to be pretty much the same. We're going to set them to, let's say, roughly 2000. I don't want to spend too much time trying to nail where these are going to go. But the reason why that I set them to 2000 rather than the full 10,000 or 5,000 is because at some point, all of the stuff that we've built up to this point is coming down. So all of that stuff is going to need to go somewhere. So just in case we collect some extra iron out of here or off the belts, all the belts have stored stuff. There's some other storage units that we have. Some of the buildings have them. So all of these things are being contained, and we're going to need somewhere to put them. So I like to make sure to leave some space so that we can just dump everything into these machines and quickly and easily convert everything. That is a good rule of thumb and good practice to make sure that you have an adequate storage for the stuff that you're going to be tearing down. And thankfully this game, I would say that for the factory automation games, this game certainly has the best way of removing builds. Like, you don't have to remove one at a time or one section at a time, or you don't have to get the bots to tear it all down. Literally, you just comb it and it's all gone. Okay, so now that we've covered a lot of that, let's talk about some problems that we have. So before we make the mall, we're obviously going to need some items, and we did start making some over here. There's others that we have not actually turned on or activated yet. We have quite a few builds, so I've continued to make some of the assembling builds. We've added gears and prisms to this. There are a few things that we're going to be adding as well, so I did leave room for motors in this section here, and we're going to add on a couple after, but until we get to that point, we do obviously have some items that are being created. We have a mall that is here that has largely been temporary. And obviously that means we have the ability to make all of these items. And that is largely because of all the items that we have over here on this bus. So something else that we can do is we can start collecting a lot of the items that we have being created around the map. So in this case, we're going to drop an ILS over here and another one over here somewhere. This isn't, like, we don't need this to look pretty. We just need to get this down. It needs to collect some stuff for us. It needs to be our kind of mule carrying things over to our mall. So I'm not worried about the silicon. I'm not worried about the copper the copper plates, ingots, or the iron ingots. But everything else we can definitely start to feed into a machine or into an ILS. So that is our steel. And again, I'm not making this look pretty. It's just temporary. So this is the insiders. This is glass. This is steel. We're also going to get the magnetic coils, the circuit boards, gears, sure, stone brick, yes. And we just need to set those up here. This is complete habit. Even though we don't need this many drones, we definitely don't need vessels for this. You know what? It's just, I just put them in every single one of them. So what did we have over here? Steel. And we're going to set this pretty low. Like, we just need some, right? We just need it, whatever it's creating over time, we just need to bring this in. So we're going to aim for 500. I'm not going to be too picky. 400 is fine. What else? Glass. Glass we will have on as a build very soon. We had magnetic rings, or magnetic coils, circuit board. Where did the circuit board go? Gears. And stone brick. Okay. Again, not being too picky, not being too fancy. We just need to get this out of the way. So, some other problems that we have. I guess before I get into the problems, I can say how I discovered the problem. So I've been collecting a lot of the ILS. If you missed that, I have 64 on me. Well, okay, I did have 66, but that was kind of convenient that I have 64. So I have 64 on me. You can see that we have no particle containers. So let's go over to the particle containers and figure out why we don't have any. And this is a very common thing that you will need to do in any factory game that you play. So we do not have any particle containers because we do not have any turbines, which also means that we don't have any supermagnetic rings. So we are completely out of both of those. This is something that we're going to need at least a little bit of. The supermagnetic rings for sure. We do not have any turbines. And why do we not have turbines? We don't have turbines because we don't have any electric motors over here. Why don't we have motors? Because we don't have any ingots. All right, so we are continuing to backtrack. And it looks like we do not have ingots because we do not have enough ore coming in. So we have completely depleted this half of this ore patch. So we're just going to give this a little bit of a band-aid. And we're going to drop a PLS over here. Nope, not ILS. Maybe I want to... this is going to get in the way of our mall. So I'm actually going to put this back here. Do I want to put this back here? Tell you what, we're going to have to collect some of the graphene and sulfuric acid, so I might as well put it back here. And we're going to bring in just a little bit, like 500. Receive. And that way this can start to fill that in, and we can start to build that back up. Okay, well, since we're over here, we might as well grab some of that. The sulfuric acid, sure. And we're going to get some graphene over here. Something like that. And then we need to enable it over here. So that is sulfuric acid. Again, we're going to keep this nice and low. Graphene. And now we have access to that. What else? We will need access to a bunch of stuff over here. So let's get another PLS down. We have some titanium alloy here. Whatever, good enough. And we have room for 3 more ingredients, and we definitely need some of this stuff over here. We have a lot of this saved up, so this is a definite, let's get this one in. That is the electric motors. Oh, no. Definitely keep these low. I think the rest of them we can probably just have a PLS over here. So let's get another one down. I probably don't want to put it over here. This is going to interfere with... I mean, when is this stuff not going to interfere with each other? It's going to interfere either way. Maybe. Which one was the turbines? Turbines are here, so we will add that in. Oh, come on. Turbines, and we can get particle containers. And the super magnetic rings. These did I limit these? Please tell me I limited those. Okay, those are good. Turbines, keeping it low. Super magnetic rings and particle containers. Okay, so we will have more permanent, like larger builds for these, obviously, but for now that is going to be perfectly fine. We might have some problems with some of these. So for instance, we are bringing in graphene here, and the graphene is going to prioritize going through the storage. I mean, not that the graphene is going to be a problem. Yeah, that's fine. So it would prioritize going through the storage. So we're going to have to try to rely a lot less on the bots. I'm also not too concerned about any of the items that are being made by the sciences or that are required by the sciences. So plastic, the diamonds, the titanium crystals, the organic crystals, hydrogen. Well, we already have hydrogen tapped. What is this? The energetic graphite. You get the idea. I'm mainly focused on, will it be able to make something in our mall? Okay, so this is obviously dwindling down, which means that this is working, this system. We are using a little bit of hydrogen. We can actually bump this up a little bit. Sure. That'll get this flowing a little bit more. Again, this is temporary. Once we once we start making the fusion generators, we will probably drop that build here and then stop relying on this as kind of a cop-out for not having our orbital collectors out on our gas giant, wherever that is. I don't think it's in range of our visuals at the moment. There it is. That will be basically a near infinite source of hydrogen for us. Okay, so the mall. Let's get into the mall. So if you recall from the last episode, I mentioned that we were largely going to be using these two sections here for a mall. We're going to be starting on this ring here. So just to kind of, again, show this off. So this is the central section, the equatorial large band, where this is like prime real estate. Then we have this thicker band that is going to be containing a lot of the wider builds that we have, probably mostly power, but a few things here and there too. And then after that, we have the two rings that we're going to be, the two tropic regions that we're going to be using for our mall. And that is largely going to start on this middle band here. So we are literally going to take these. Before we do that, though, let's set this up because we're going to be copying and pasting these. So even though I won't have enough of the drones or the vessels, we're still going to set it up to automatically place them because it's going to copy all the settings once we shift click and move it over. And then I also want to take the minimum vessels and drop this to 1%. Drones, we can jump it up to 50%, 100%, whatever. Let's do 50%. So the reason why I have the minimum load of vessels set to 1% is because I don't want it to try to wait until I have like 1,000 of something if it was at 10%. I don't want to have 1,000 of something come in. If we had that happen with the ILS as an example, you would obviously get way more in your inventory than you could possibly hold. So we want to set this to 1%. That way, when we start requesting in materials from the mall, which we will be able to do from anywhere in our galaxy, which is the point of this. We only want it to send a minimal amount, so we set this to 1%, and for each one of the items that we have, we will have at least some kind of a buffer. So any of the buffering that happens will be near the item that is being crafted, and like I said, almost everything will have a buffer, and we're going to go from there. So now that we have these settings, we can shift click. We're going to start with this section. So I did say that whatever the next most available spot is on this line is where we're putting the building. There's a few things that are probably going to get in our way. That's perfectly fine. This is going to be one of them here, and unfortunately we're just going to be burying anything that gets in the way. And I'm just going to go through and place all of these. So I'm also going to place the ones below it while we're at it. And if you recall, we're placing it on this line, and I'm placing it exactly at the point that it is capable of being placed, and not on this Tropic line. And the reason for that was because we want these to line up with each other. And if we were to drop down to the Tropic line, you can kind of see that it shifts over because it favors this little section here over this little section here. It always favors the side that the equator is on. So it would always favor being on this grid rather than this grid, and we do not want that. So I'm going to go through and place all these, and I will be back shortly. Okay, so that is the bulk of the ILS placed. As you can see, I did need to skip some sections. We are obviously going to have some builds that are in the way, but that is not a big deal. I was at least able to place most of them, so I missed, what, like 7 or 8, something like that? Was there anywhere else? No, I think it was mostly just that one section. So, one of the first things that we're going to do is, well, okay, so I also mentioned that we were going to be using both of these bands. We're not going to be placing these just yet, but there are a couple of builds that we're going to have kind of dedicated for the secondary band. A lot of the builds that we're going to have are going to be in between the 2 ILS that we've already placed. And then these 2 smaller rings just above it, we are also going to have some builds in here as well. Some really tiny builds. So maybe like some of the engines, the thrusters, and the reinforced thrusters. Maybe some of the military stuff. And I did mention, let's talk about that for a minute. So I did mention that the 3 different rows that we would eventually have would be, I think, 64 ILS. And we have something like 56 or 58, maybe 60 items over here that we could make. But we're also going to be adding some of these and some of this stuff over here. So we definitely want to try to utilize as much of this real estate as we can. And we are going to be, it's not going to be 100% dedicated one ILS for one item. There's a few things that we're going to be adding on. So what I mean by that is, for instance, we're going to have 2 ILS that are completely responsible for all the sorters. 2 ILS will be responsible for all 3 of the belts. 2 of the ILS will be responsible for 3 of the assembling machines, and you get the idea. There's 3 power poles that we will have between 2. So there's a couple situations where we can definitely double up, or one ILS can take care of both the Depot Mark 1 and the Depot Mark 2. So like I said, there's a couple things here and there that we can double up on, which will help us control, let's just say, the amount of different things that we have, and we're going to have some leftover space. This is intentional. I definitely wanted to make a build where you had some wiggle room left over that maybe, you know, if they add more machines later, this will allow you to add some things and not be completely pigeonholed or try to have to make it on a different planet or redesign it or whatever. This is kind of future-proofing the mall. Anyways, so to get right into it, let's just start with the hardest one. So the hardest one is going to be the sorters. So I like to start with whatever items we have. So the sorter, it needs iron plates, iron ingots, and circuit boards. And then we're also going to need the Mark II in here. So the Mark II additionally needs the electric motors. In the other ILS, we then need the Mark III, which needs the Mark II. That's going to be a given, and the turbines. And then the pile sorter, in addition to the Mark III, which we have up here, we'll need the supermagnetic rings and processors. So that is as much stuff as we can squeeze in. Also, for each of these, we're going to be bringing in and storing a very minimal amount of items. There are some exceptions. We will have, for instance, some situations where we might have a larger, let's call this the delivery amount. So this is why we're going to be buffering a lot of this too, is whatever you have stored is the amount that you want delivered. We can obviously only take this so far down. 100 is the minimum, so it will get to the point where, for instance, we might have to send 100 ILS if you run out, but that is perfectly fine. This is the delivery amount, and then whatever we buffer is maybe the amount that we want as a backup. So for instance, if something takes a long time to craft, a good example would be these drones and vessels. It's nice to have a decent little pile of them. That way, once you start placing a bunch of ILS all over the galaxy, you can just import some and then place them all. But oh no, we need more, import a bunch, and you've got a backup ready to go. So that is an example of what that's going to look like. And did I set all of this? No, we need 100 of each of these as well. And I'm I'm bringing in 100 as well, because again, we don't really need a ton of these things. We just need them coming in. As long as we're just making something over time, then that's what we're aiming for. All right, so this is obviously going to be extremely tight. So we're going to have this right on this line, and we're placing all 4. We're going to have just enough room for belts to squeak by over here and just enough room for belts to squeak by over here. All of these will be chained together. This is our Mark I, Mark II, Mark III, and the pile sorter. Okay, so there's a couple things. One, this only needs 2 ingredients, and whenever I'm bringing in just 2 ingredients, actually, this is going to be one exception, but in general, if I'm bringing in 2 ingredients, I'll just, instead of using the middle lane, I'll only use the outsides. But in this case, it's a little bit different, and this might be the case later as well. But another thing is that we can't just bring these belts out. The middle one would be fine. We can actually connect this one, but because we're so close and tight here, this won't let us connect to this one. I'm pretty sure it used to allow us to connect this tight, but at least for now, that is not the case. So anytime that we want to place something on this belt, we're going to end up having to go to the side. And I like to go one past. That way I can just, whoops, have this be straight and lined up and then delete the excess. So that is how that's going to work. And in this case, we want one of the 2 items. I'm going to go with the circuits here. And I did say that this is a little bit of an exception for a build. So I am going to have the iron come out in the middle. That is going to be collected from here. And that is because I want a return line for anything else. So the Mark II is going to come over and down. We might have to fiddle around with this, but that's okay. Actually, I should have just done it over. No, I'm not worried about it. All right, so this is going to be a return line for the Mark II. Tell you what, let's...
Mineral depleted.
What if we did it like this instead? Alright, so let's get this set up before we get too far into this. So we have the Mark 1s coming through here. Oh, no. This was not the Mark II. This was Mark 1. That's why this is throwing me off. Alright, so this is the Mark 1 and it comes over to the Mark II. There we go. So why am I doing this? The reason why is because if we're out in the universe and we, for some reason, had some of these, we want to be able to just dump these in here, but not have them continue to pile up as we start replacing these. I mean, this, you know, just in general, we obviously don't have any of these out on the field, but let's say that in a future playthrough, you copy this mall design. We just want a return line just in case, right? So that is going to return this. That way this will only ever stay at 100 and it will not continue to just pile up. But we also need the engine, or that one. So that is going to come in here. And then because this is the Mark II, and we have a return line for the Mark II, we also want to bring out the Mark II to go into the Mark III. Like that. And everything, like I said, everything is going to be buffered. So we're going to bring this out to here. We're going to have this, the splitter, and then a chest on top of each of these. Let's do this first. I'm going to set these to 1. At least for the smaller ones, we only need a stack size of 1 or a buffer of maybe 1 stack. Maybe for the Mark IIIs, we have, I don't know, a full row here, and the pile, we have a full row. We might end up needing more later, that's fine. And then these will come out from here. I guess I need one to come out from here, so that goes there. All right, let's give ourselves a little bit of breathing space. One row for that one and one row for that one. All right, so this is pretty much how this is going to look. This one, let's start with the pile sorter. So the pile sorter needed the Mark III belts, which we have coming in through here. And it also needed, I should have done this one first. The rings, let's get that one attached here. There we go. And the processors. We also need a return line for the Mark III. And then for the Mark III, we need to have the turbines. And there you go. That is the most complicated build of the ones that we're going to be doing. And because of that, I'm mostly not going to be... I'm not going to go through all of these, I don't think. We're going to go through a couple of them. Another thing to note is I want to leave this last section open. And the reason why is because eventually we will have the... where is it?
extraterrestrial dark fog is assaulting.
These space warpers. Okay, I want to talk about the dark fog in a second too. So the space warpers we will eventually be able to make, and what this does is it allows us and our vessels to warp in between large gaps in space. So if we were to actually start traveling to our nearest star, 3 light years, 3, 5. So if we were to try to actually fly to the star, we could totally fly to it, but the thing is it would take us probably about an hour if we were to just fly there at max speed. So we eventually unlock warping and we can travel in between these faster, and that also allows the vessels to travel faster as well.
Building destroyed.
Oh no, did I not? Oh, that's gonna be a problem. I thought I had that set up right. Okay, so I've taken care of that threat. We had one of the dark fog relay stations drop in on this planet, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it. I've got some defenses. They kind of took me out in a section where I didn't really have defenses. I kind of thought that they would attack this section over here, which I was prepared for with a battle station, but you know what, sometimes they like to throw you in a completely different direction. So they started attacking me over here, and they had just bypassed this over here. So I set up another section over here. We have a little bit of extra ammo that I have crafted. And another battlefield station. So one thing that I wanted to mention was that I have this filtered for just soil. It's not going to give us that much, but it is going to give us some. And if you notice, like, I do have quite a stockpile of soil. You might be wondering, oh, why does it seem like he has an infinite amount of soil? And the reason why is because I actually come back here decently often when necessary and farm some of the dirt here. So I'm a complete sucker for heavy amounts of farming in games. Like whenever I play survival games, as an example, I am totally that type of person that has like 500 apples in Breath of the Wild because I can't stop collecting them. So yeah, if you're wondering about the soil, then that is what I've been up to in between some of the episodes. Anyways, I'm going to head back now that I've got another almost 10,000, 75k. And yeah, we will continue on with the mall. Alright, we are back on our home planet now that the dark fog threat has been taken care of, kind of. Where did our... Alright, you know what? Something else that I like to do is we kind of started on this like kind of a prime meridian. We wouldn't have started over here because this one is a soft line meridian, let's say. But this one being a hard line meridian is a perfect starting point. And one thing that I like to do whenever I'm setting these up, at least as a temporary thing, is I like to make sure that this is nice and wide open. And I'm going to take whatever I have a lot of, the smelters, that's fine. And I like to just visually make a reference point, so that way anytime I'm looking, I know exactly where my starting point was. This is temporary. This is not something that we're going to leave here. Just kind of while we're creating the mall, I like to have a little section pointing me in the right direction. Okay, so that was the sorters. Let's figure out what we're going to do with the belts next. Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. Mark 1 belts. We need iron ingots and gears. The Mark 2 belts. We additionally need turbines. Mark 3 belts. We also need super magnetic rings and graphene. All the stuff that we've been adding in is definitely stuff that we're going to be using. So we can actually start to create some of this as we start to set up the rest of this. Okay, I didn't mention power. So one of the things that we want to unlock, if we have not already, I don't think we did, Where is it? Why? Where did it go? What am I missing? Here it is. What do we need? Oh, we need that one. Okay. So we're gonna... Yeah, we might as well just unlock a few things. So we're gonna unlock the solar sails, which will give us the EM ejectors. We're not gonna worry about that for quite a bit of time. But now we can queue this one up. So that's gonna allow us to make this framing material, which we will need for this guy over here. We are largely gonna be using these satellite substations. So just a giant power pole pretty much. If you wanted to go ahead and start activating this early, then we could certainly add in some power poles. Let's say here and here. Let's back that up. There, that way it covers this. And we need to start getting these powered up too. So yeah, there we go. Our power is now lower. Let's just do it. Let's go ahead and bring some of this stuff in. What else? This one will be a provider. So this is going to be requesting in. We do not have a single one of those yet. That's wild. Yeah, the turbines is definitely going to be one of the first things that we make a larger build for. It'll be interesting to see how this works out too. This is not something that I've necessarily done before, and I didn't really test it actively. I just assumed it would work. But anyways, moving along. Let's see. So we have 2 ingredients for this guy. I think at this point we would be able to just drop these in. Ew, never mind. Abort, abort. That goes in there. That goes in here. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to need to do the same thing with this one. Yeah, because I want a return line that comes across to this one. So, that is fine. We can have that be iron there. I know I talk about the rule that I'm going to have and then immediately, like, disregard the rule completely, right? Alright, what else did this need? This needed turbines. And then this one needs the Mark II belts. Oh, I don't think I mentioned... Oh, I did mention. So this lane here, we're going to leave this active, open the best that we can anyways. We're going to leave this open for the warpers. So that is kind of why I was explaining that earlier. We can connect the backside of this with warpers. Worst case scenario, if we had to use this space here, we could also set it up so that we had splitters in the back. Obviously, we do not have room for them in any of these builds, so ignore that. Forget the splitter idea. Not worried about it at all. We're just going to assume this is going to work. All right, so that is that. We need an outgoing... I probably should have just given us some more... No, this is fine. That is our magnetic rings. Let's go ahead and get this one hooked up. That way we can get this built in. Like that. They each get a chest. The first 2 are going to be limited to 1 stack. This one, though, we're just gonna leave this guy wide open. Yeah. When we want belts, we want belts. Let's, you know what, let's just do, okay, for now we'll do 3,000. So let's get these hooked up. This one comes out this way. And we need connections in between as well. Okay, and then we can request all this in. Except for this one. This is a provider, obviously. No. I forgot to set these 100. Delivery amount, let's say maybe 6,000. 3,000? We'll do 3,000 for now. So we've got 3,000 in the tank. Let's do 6,000. 2 rows of that, 6,000 in the buffer, 3,000 delivery. Same thing goes for these. We're going to try to leave these back lanes open. All right. Let's, what else? What are we going to run out of soon? I think storage. So this will kind of show off a little bit about what I mean whenever I say that we can, like, it kind of doesn't even really matter, like, what order we do things in. As a matter of fact, it might even be beneficial if you skip some every now and then. And the reason why is because, for instance, this one has the super magnetic rings. And if we take a look at a few things, so the particle collider has 5 items. Let's see if I can remember all these. Not that one. Was it that one? No. Plasma turret? That one has 5 items. The ray receiver has 5 items. And what was the last one? The last one was the miner. This amazing advanced mining machine has 5 items. And the thing about all 5 of these items is the item that they all actually have in common is the super magnetic rings. So if you have a situation like this where you have super magnetic rings, which we have here, and it has a slot open. In this case, it has many slots open. Actually, did we? Oh, we didn't set this up. Good thing I was totally paying attention to that. And graphene. Yeah, that's going to be a problem, the turbines. Anyways, we have 2 lanes open up here. For instance, we could totally bring these in and have these kind of participate. We wouldn't bring it into this machine, but we would have it come over and help out. I think ideally this build would have been over here, and we would have left this slot open. That way we could go in this direction. It should maybe be fine because, like, let's use this as an example. It would have been hard to get something over here, but we probably could have done, you know, some funky stuff, something like this, maybe. Anyways, I'm not too concerned about it. All right, one more thing real quick so I can kind of show like how we're gonna pair some of this stuff together. I'm gonna have this be pretty tight again, enough room for 1 lane. And one of these is gonna be the Mark II depot, one of these is gonna be the Mark I. We obviously don't need Mark I to make the Mark II. It is not an ingredient requirement, but they both have stone brick and they both have one other ingredient. So we can have, for instance, this, and then give it its 2 ingredients, the iron and the stone brick, and then the second one is the Mark II, which adds in steel. So that is all 5 of our items. Lower these down, definitely. I'm also totally going to shift this over because I just... Oh, I didn't copy those over. Alright, whatever. I totally, completely forgot that I had just said, hey, make sure you maybe consider leaving a gap open here. And that is going to be I'm not going to request that in just yet. What am I doing? All right. So again, this is going to be one space, one gap. Doesn't matter which one is which at all. So we have started with this one. So let's just say that this one is stone brick, and we're going to bring it into the other one too. So that can go in there. This can go in really wherever. I'm totally going to break my own rule. Look at this. So this one's going to be steel. This one's going to be iron plates. I know. You know what? A lot of times it's not like mandatory that you say exactly what I'm saying to do, but it's just guidelines. This does cause a problem, however, in getting out the items. We should maybe still be able to do this, though. Maybe I don't want to do that and I want to do this instead. Yeah. These are getting a box. This one is, they're both going to be single stack box or a single box. We're not going to need, like, the small one is probably the one we're going to need the most of, obviously, since we're running out. Okay, so let's bring some of this in. Stone brick. These should all be readily, easily available. Give it some, I guess, temporary power, which is not connected to anything. Awesome. All right, where would this one have gone? Something like that. Okay, and we now have extra boxes. All right, so that is kind of a small start to the mall. And again, it doesn't really matter like where you put, like this build here could have been placed all the way over there. It doesn't really matter, whatever your kind of personal preferences are, right? You could have had both of these be individual ones. We're not, you know, I would probably prefer to have them stacked up, like I said, because we're going to have 64 units and we're going to have a little bit more than that for different items, and you know, there's a couple different things we'll have to do here and there. So piling these up is probably a good thing. It also protects us from future endeavors, anything that the Youth Cat Studios might throw at us. And yeah, you can pretty much just go through the list. So I'm not going to do too much more of this off screen. The only things that we were pairing up were the sorters, the belts. We're going to pair these up. We could totally pair these up too, because these are basically the same ingredients. So these two could be tied together, or they could be opposites. Like, it doesn't really matter. The assembling machines will be paired up. I believe 2 of the smelters we would probably pair up as well. So we could probably even do that. I'm not going to necessarily do it right now, but let's just say that these smelters would go here and here. I don't know if that's going to work for sure because this smelter has quite a few ingredients. And okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's not going to work because the other one has many ingredients. I don't even remember where it is, to be honest, off the top of my head. Anyways, that is going to be it for me for this episode. In the next episode, we are going to continue working on this mall. And we are also going to make a small little build for maybe the engines. Yeah, we'll do all three of these. Engines, thrusters, reinforced thrusters, because not having the drones or the vessels here is absolutely going to drive me crazy. So we're going to do that in the next episode. All right, so I will see you then, and thanks for watching.